You're listening to You're Not Dead Yet with wealth advisor Chris McNeil.
Hey, y'all, welcome to the next episode of You're Not Dead Yet, where if you're tuning in, you're part of the movement that's thriving at the crossroads of building wealth and living life. And today we're going to kind of focus on small business owners or self-employed individuals due to a question that we had submitted by a listener named Jorge. His question is, my wife and I are 56 and own a small business that has been profitable. First and foremost, congratulations on that. Our retirement plan has always been selling the business, but as we get closer to retirement in the next 10 years, I'm not sure the business alone will be enough to fund our retirement for our long-term goals. We've neglected saving outside of a small emergency fund. Is it too late to catch up? So that's kind of what we're going to talk about today, because I don't think Jorge is by himself when it comes to owning a business and potentially feeling like they're behind the eight ball when it comes to being prepared for retirement or what that will look like. So to answer your question, Jorge, I don't think it's too late, but I do think you're in the right mind frame of wanting to start planning now to catch up. You certainly still have time, but I think it's extremely important that the plan that you put into place is intentional and purposeful for what you're trying to accomplish when it comes to what you and your wife envision retirement looking like. I think the key again is urgency plus intentionality plus purpose will allow you to achieve what you want now that you feel you're kind of up in this, now that you feel that you're in this catch-up phase between now and, like you said, the next 10 years when you're wanting to retire. Secondly, I think the key is to look at and be intentional about diversifying your assets and where they're invested and where that income is going to come from in retirement. Depending solely on the sale of your business could potentially fund all of your retirement goals, but it also could fall significantly short based on timing and when you're looking to sell and what the economy looks like at that point in time. There's things we can control and there's things that we can't control. So let's look at the items that we can control and have intentionality and purposeful actions, which will help us address what we can't control and essentially plan for the worst, but hope for the best. So again, I do think it's important to make sure that we're diversifying our assets, where they're invested, so that we have multiple buckets that we can pull from for income purposes. A lot of business owners that we talk to and a lot of the business owners that we work with from the get-go will oftentimes feel that the valuation of their business is worth more than what it may potentially be down the road. It's just like all of us that own a home, right? We're emotionally and financially tied to that investment. So we oftentimes, and it's natural to feel like that investment is worth and valued more than what it actually may be or what the market value is of that investment at that point in time. And it's no different for a business. You know, there's a lot of things that have to be taken into consideration when looking at selling a business or selling a practice. So just like selling a house, a business is no different. We have to take into consideration market timing, what's going on with the markets. If the markets are currently in a recessionary period or they've been down, any potential buyers that are looking at that business probably isn't going to have as much capital as what they'd hoped for to buy that business. The other aspect is, in that case, the buyer demand. Do we have multiple buyers that will drive up the value of the business, or do we have one specific buyer where it may be more of a buyer's market than a seller's market at that point in time? That's something that we can't control, which could determine when you retire or when you don't retire and potentially having to push that back a couple more years than you initially expected. And then I think lastly is the transferability of the business. You know, is it an LLC? Is it an S Corp? Is it incorporated? Is it a partnership LLC? Depending on the different type of business and the way that it's structured could hinder or make it easier to transfer that business or sell that business as well. So these are all things to take into consideration when looking to sell a business or sell a practice, which is oftentimes why I recommend not only to the clients that we work with that are business owners or self-employed, but also other individuals that we speak with, to reach out to a broker that can provide a valuation of your business, can take everything into consideration. And if there are some things that we need to tighten up, again, just like a house, there might be things that need to be done within the house to make it quote unquote market ready. Well, we're going to want to do the same thing with that business. But instead of waiting 6 months to a year before selling the house, these are steps that you oftentimes want to take and reach out to a broker to provide that valuation, to provide guidance and consultation on what you can do as a business owner today to make the business look as attractive as possible and make it as marketable as possible when that time comes for you to sell that business or step away. And in addition to reaching out to that broker and getting that valuation, something else that we'll probably want to look at is making sure that your ability to report on income, report on operations, expenses, your P&Ls, all of that is as tight and as clean as possible. And if you are looking to sell the business here in the next 5 to 10 years in general, maybe it's something where you look at putting a plan into place or a succession plan into place when it comes to you stepping back and the business not being as dependent on you and or your significant other when it comes to the day-to-day operations. Now, again, that's easier said than done, and it's hard to find good people in today's world when it comes to running your business, but they are out there. So again, to break it down, if we are looking to sell the business in the next 5 to 10 years, let's make sure our financial reporting and our operations reporting are as clean as possible. Two, let's look at reducing the dependence of your personal involvement in the business. And lastly, but most importantly, making sure that we're engaging a broker to provide that business valuation and for them to provide that expertise on an exit planning strategy. So that can be the broker that's providing the valuation, that can be working with a financial professional, an advisor like myself, that helps small business owners and self-employed individuals develop and generate and create that exit strategy, because that exit strategy is also going to want to make sure that you're doing it in the most tax efficient manner possible. Once we sell that business, we're going to want to make sure we keep as much of that proceeds from the sale of that business in your pocket versus having to go to Uncle Sam or defer the taxes from the proceeds of that sale of the business over 5, 10, 15, 20 years with different types of trusts or investment vehicles that can be utilized to spread that tax liability out. If you have additional questions on that or would like further information on how you can spread out that tax liability over time and what that looks like, feel free to reach out to myself or someone on my team here at Premier Investments and Wealth Management, and we'll be happy to walk you through that process and really put together an exit strategy very similar to like what a financial plan will do for an individual's retirement plan. The exit strategy plan is just as important when it comes to someone looking to sell a practice or sell a business. I think the next thing that you obviously want to focus on, and probably why you reached out in the first place, Jorge, is the ability to max out your contributions to the different types of investment vehicles or retirement vehicles that are accessible to you. So keeping in mind that both you and your significant other, your wife in this case, are over the age of 50. If you have a 401k within your business, keeping in mind that you're able to contribute up to $30,500 a year to that 401k. If there's a match that's being provided by you guys, of course, you're able to take advantage of that employer match as well. And this also goes for individuals that aren't self-employed. If you're over the age of 50, you have the ability to contribute up to $30,500 a year towards that 401k and take advantage of whatever that employer match is year in and year out until you retire, whether that be 5 years from now, 10 years from now. That employer match, whether it's a 403b, 401k, 457, regardless of what type of retirement plan or investment vehicle is, whatever that match is by your employer, that's free money. And again, if we've got 10 years before we're retiring, That's 10 years of time and 10 years of potential growth that we're able to invest and able to take advantage of the performance in the markets on top of your contributions. The next thing that you can potentially look at as a self-employed individual or business owner is what's called a SEP IRA, a simplified employer pension. But for simplicity purposes, most of the individuals that utilize a SEP IRA for investment purposes and retirement purposes are going to be self-employed or business owners themselves. So instead of a simplified employer pension, I call it the self-employed professional IRA. Now, again, that's the term I utilize to make it easier for self-employed and business owners to understand and get. But the advantage to this SEP IRA is that if you're self-employed, you can contribute up to 20% of your earnings annually up to 70,000 a year. So in this case, because Jorge, you and your wife own the same business, you would have the ability to contribute up to 70,000 within a SEP IRA for you both. Now, in the instance for the other listeners, let's say that you own a business, but your significant other owns a separate business. This would be an opportunity where, depending on what your earnings are on that annual basis, you could potentially be putting $140,000 a year away for retirement. You could maximize the 70,000 with your business when it comes to the contribution, and maximize the 70,000 for your significant other's business when it comes to their contribution. But this is another great way to maximize the contributions you're able to put into that type of investment vehicle, i.e., the SEP IRA, and give yourself that 10 years of tax deferred growth so that 10 years from now, when you retire, Jorge, we'll pay ordinary income on those distributions just like we would a traditional IRA or any other tax deferred investment vehicle in this case. But there's a good chance that if you're making 3, 4, 500,000 a year while you're working, that when you retire, it's possible that you might only need 150 to 200,000 a year to live off of, or even less, which would put you in a smaller tax bracket when you take that income out. And lastly is the ability to contribute to a Roth IRA. Now, most of you listening to this are probably saying, well, look, Chris, I'm a high income earner. I make too much to contribute to a Roth IRA. And in fact, if your household makes more than $236,000 a year, in this case for 2025, you're right. You make too much money to contribute directly to a Roth IRA. But that's also why they have what's called the backdoor Roth conversion strategy. Because what you are able to do is, being 50 or older, contribute up to $8,000 a year to a traditional IRA. So in this case, Jorge, for you and your wife, you could contribute $8,000 to an IRA for yourself, $8,000 to an IRA for your wife, and then that backdoor Roth conversion strategy is the next day after the contributions are made to that traditional IRA, we can what's called convert those assets or those contributions from the IRA to the Roth IRA. Now, you're limited to what you can contribute on an annual basis, but there is no limit to what you can convert from a traditional IRA to a Roth IRA on an annual basis. The one thing to take into consideration, though, is that whatever you convert from an IRA to a Roth IRA with this conversion strategy, every dollar that you convert will be taxed as ordinary income. However, if you contributed the $8,000 to the IRA today, and we convert that $8,000 tomorrow to that Roth IRA, are there any earnings from that contribution that have been made that would be taxed? And the answer to that question is no, because the $8,000 that you're contributing to the IRA is already post-tax money. If we're converting it the next day, that conversion actually can occur without any taxable implications. And this is a way for high income earners like yourself or the other listeners tuning in right now to access that Roth IRA, take advantage of the tax deferred growth that the Roth IRA can provide, just like the traditional IRA, but more importantly, as long as the contributions have been in that Roth IRA for more than 5 years, the contributions plus the earnings that you've made over that tax deferred time period come out tax free when the distributions occur. So this gives another bucket of money when you are ready to retire and you are ready to take income, where you have your tax deferred bucket, your tax free bucket, and your taxable bucket that you can pull money from, all three, if you chose to, in 1 year, to be as tax efficient as possible. Because again, we want to control the things that we can control and not worry about, but at least plan for the things that we cannot control. What we cannot control is what the tax brackets will be 10, 15, 20 years from now. However, what we can control is putting a plan in place when it comes to the amount of money that we invest in those three different types of buckets. Again, tax free, tax deferred, taxable, which allows us year in and year out throughout retirement to determine which bucket to pull the income from to be as tax efficient as possible, given what the tax code or what those tax brackets are in the future. And then, in addition to taking advantage of those backdoor Roth conversion strategies, there are other investments that we can look at, such as physical real estate and other investments that are out there to continue to diversify the overall portfolio and reduce the dependency that you and your wife will have when it comes to the sale of the business. So 10 years from now, if it's a buyer's market and the market is in a recession, or all of the cards are stacked against you because of the intentional and purposeful actions that you've taken between now and 10 years from now in that catch-up phase, may be able to allow you to not have to sell the business for as much as you thought and still achieve the goals and objectives and achieve the retirement that you and your wife envision. Needless to say, there are a lot of things and items to take into consideration now that we're in the catch-up phase for retirement purposes, and given the concerns that you have that the sale of the practice may not be able to fund the retirement you envision long term, is that the room for error or mistakes is very little. This is a situation where it's not so much what we make, it's what we don't lose at this point in time. It would benefit you to build out a financial professional team if you haven't already. And what I mean by that is reaching out to a financial advisor or wealth manager like myself that can help stress test those retirement scenarios. Again, plan for the worst, hope for the best, but stress test what those worst case scenarios look like, put together and optimize an exit strategy for the sale of that business in the most tax efficient manner possible, and then make sure that your personal finances align with your exit goals when it comes to the sale of the business itself. In addition to that financial advisor, that broker that can provide the evaluation of that business and help guide you on making the business the most marketable possible when you are in fact ready to sell, a CPA that can help guide and hold your hand through the process and making sure that we're doing it in the most tax efficient manner possible, answer any tax questions that you might have. And then lastly, the thing that I think a lot of people don't take into consideration is an attorney or a lawyer that specializes in the sale of businesses or that exit strategy, in addition to estate planning, your will, any trust that should be developed to be as tax efficient as possible, advanced directives, succession planning, contracts that need to be put into place with either current employees or the individuals that are obviously looking to buy your practice when that time comes. So if you've got those four types of financial professionals in your corner working in concert on your behalf, it's going to put you in a position to maximize the value of not only the sale of the business, but also assist you with achieving and reaching those goals and objectives for what you envision that retirement looking like, especially now that we're in the catch-up phase, or what you feel like might be the catch-up phase of your life. So Jorge, appreciate you reaching out, appreciate the question. Again, congratulations on having that profitable business. If you'd like to take advantage of that financial plan and putting together that exit strategy for the business, I'm happy to help. Reach out to myself and my team. We can put some steps in place, have a discussion about those goals and objectives and what you envision that retirement looking like. And then we can put something together that will allow you and your wife to make more of an educated decision on what you think makes the most sense. All right. So, given the theme this week, the song of the week is going to be Let's Get It Started. It's certainly not too late to start saving for retirement, but we certainly want to get started now. And again, be intentional and purposeful and have a plan in place on how and where we invest those assets to maximize your options, but also maximize that income in retirement. So let's get it started by the Black Eyed Peas. It's time for a dad joke. And the dad joke for the week, for all of my fellow dad joke lovers and dad joke tellers, this is extremely important information. Where does one store all of their dad jokes? In a database. Ha! All right, y'all, so that's all we have for this week. Just like every other week, I hope you found it helpful and useful. And if you're in the same place as Jorge and his wife is, where you feel like you're a little bit behind the eight ball and wanting to sell your business or your practice here in the next 5 to 10 years, and you're not sure the proceeds that will be generated from the sale of your business will be enough for you to fund your retirement, I encourage you to reach out to us. We can put that financial plan for your personal assets together, but also build out that exit plan for the sale of your practice down the road. And again, this isn't something that you're going to want to start tomorrow if you're selling your business here at the end of the year. In most cases, you want to be at least 3 to 5 years out from the sale of your business or the thought that you would potentially want to sell your business by putting that exit strategy in place. So again, you can make it as marketable as possible, but more importantly, maximize the value of your business. So thanks again for tuning in. Remember, you can access the You're Not Dead Yet podcast on any major platform, Spotify, YouTube, Apple, or any other major platform that you tune in to get your favorite podcasts. And last but not least, you guys know what's coming. Don't have a great week. Make it a great week. Take care, y'all.
Securities and advisory services offered through LPL Financial, a registered investment advisor, member FINRA SIPC. The opinions voiced in this show are for general information purposes only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine which investments may be appropriate for you, consult with your attorney, accountant, and financial or tax advisor prior to investing. Premier Investments and Wealth Management and LPL Financial do not provide tax advice. Please consult your tax professional. There is no guarantee that a diversified portfolio will enhance overall returns or outperform a non-diversified portfolio. Diversification does not protect against market risk. Dollar cost averaging involves continuous investment in securities, regardless of fluctuations in price levels. Investors should consider their ability to continue purchasing through periods of low price levels. Such a plan does not assure a profit and does not protect against loss in declining markets. All performance referenced is historical and is not a guarantee of future results. All indices are unmanaged and cannot be invested into directly. Traditional IRA account owners have considerations to make before performing a Roth IRA conversion. These primarily include income tax consequences on the converted amount in the year of the conversion, withdrawal limitations from a Roth IRA, and income limitations for future contributions to a Roth IRA. In addition, if you are required to take a minimum distribution, RMD, in the year you convert, you must do so before converting to a Roth IRA. Consult your tax professional about eligibility to Roth and traditional IRA contributions. Contributions and earnings in a Roth IRA can be withdrawn without paying taxes and penalties if the account owner is at least 59 and has held their Roth IRA for at least 5 years.